Greetings, translators, and welcome to this beginner-friendly tutorial on computer-aided tools software. Today, we're going to learn how to use Trados Studio 2024 to do translations. By the end of this video, you'll know how to start a translation project, edit and use translation memories, and apply some basic review techniques to improve your final output. Trados Studio 2024 is one of the most well-known computer-assisted translation tools developed by RWS, a global leader in language and content management solutions. It was originally developed by a German company in the 1980s, and its early versions laid the groundwork for what we now know as modern CAT tools. It was later acquired by SDL and eventually became part of RWS in 2020. Today, Trados remains one of the most widely used CAT tools in the professional translation industry. It's especially popular with translation agencies, localization teams, and freelance translators who need offline flexibility, advanced TM features, and full control over their workflow. Compared to newer cloud-based tools like Phrase or SmartCat, Trados stands out for its powerful desktop environment and long-standing reputation. Before we dive into Trados Studio itself, let's take a moment to understand how CAT tools like Trados Studio work and why they're used in professional translation. Unlike machine translation, which aims to automate the translation process, CAT software tools are designed not to replace human translators but to support them. Users are still active agents who do the translation. So why do translators use CAT tools in the first place? In real-life industries, some content often tends to repeat itself. Think of an appliance company that makes washing machines or a government agency that has to publish hundreds of yearly reports or announcements. They might have to render multilingual versions of the documents for each project, but most of the content stays the same. Manually retyping or retranslating all that repeated content is time-consuming and increases the risk of inconsistency. That's where CAT tools come in. One of their core features is something called a translation memory, or TM. This is a database that stores everything you translate, usually one sentence at a time. When you're working on a new document, the CAT tool checks each sentence against that memory. If it finds a match, or even a partial match, it offers a suggestion based on your past work. You can accept it, tweak it, or skip it entirely. Here, the human translator is still responsible for making the decisions. Let's take a look at the text we'll be working with today. It's December 2024, and you are the translator for the transportation department. New Year's Eve is coming, and as mass celebrations take place on the streets, special transportation arrangements are being prepared. As you might expect, these arrangements are quite similar from year to year. At the same time, the public announcements must follow a high standard of consistency in tone, terminology, and word choice. This is exactly where CAT tools come in handy. Your task today is to translate the Chinese version of this year's public announcement using the translation memory built from last year's bilingual announcements. This is the dual window editing panel where you'll actually do the translation, with the source text on one side and your translation on the other. But before we jump into translating, there's an important bit of preparation we need to do. We need to get our translation memory, or TM, ready, and that starts with aligning our raw bilingual materials. In some professional settings, like translation agencies or clients who are familiar with CAT tools, you might be lucky enough to receive ready-made resources. These often include a translation memory file, such as .sdltm or .tmx, and sometimes a term base, like .sdltb or .tbx. But more often than not, especially when you're working freelance or with less experienced clients, you'll have to create these resources yourself. In our scenario today, let's imagine you're the only person on the team who even knows what a CAT tool is. All you have access to are last year's announcements, but only as separate documents on the website. Don't worry. Trados makes it easy to turn these bilingual materials into a working TM through a process called alignment. First, you'll need to transfer the text into a clean file. Of course, Trados supports a wide range of file types, including more complex formats from typesetting tools like InDesign. But in this case, we'll keep it simple. Just copy and paste the Chinese and English versions into two separate Microsoft Word documents. Try to keep the formatting clean, no headers, footers, or extra spacing, just plain text, ideally with one sentence per line. This will make the alignment process much smoother and more accurate. Now, we may finally enter Trados and begin working within the tool itself. What we're going to do next is align the two Word documents we just prepared, the Chinese version as the source, and the English version as the target. In larger scale projects, you might be aligning multiple files at once, especially if you're working with a team or a batch of documents. But for our example today, we're working with just one set of bilingual texts, so we'll choose the option Align Single File Pair. Before we can begin the alignment, we need to create a translation memory where our aligned content will be saved. Look for the Create button. It has a small star icon, and select New File-Based Translation Memory. Give your TM a name, and choose the source language and target language. Be sure to select the correct language variants, for example, UK or US English, and traditional Chinese, Taiwan or Hong Kong, and keep that selection consistent throughout your workflow. You can then click Finish, and feel free to ignore the optional steps like fields and language resources. Just close the TM Creation wizard once you're done. Now, back in the Align Document wizard, go ahead and upload your Word documents, placing the Chinese file in the source file field and the English one in the target file field. Then click Next. You'll see the language pair displayed. This comes directly from the settings you chose when you created the TM. Double-check that your source and target languages are correct and not accidentally reversed. Once everything looks good, go ahead and click Finish. This is the screen you'll see right after you click Finish in the alignment setup. Now, no matter how neatly you've formatted the Word documents, the automatic alignment Trados produces will usually not be 100% accurate, so some manual adjustment is expected. The first thing you'll want to understand is how to select segments correctly. If you click inside the text box of a segment, the segment will be highlighted in blue. This allows you to edit the text directly, but that's not something we need to do for this task. Instead, for alignment purposes, you should click on the segment numbers on the left. This highlights the segment in yellow, which is the correct way to select segments when aligning. You can also select multiple segments by using Ctrl or Shift while clicking. Once you try both methods, you'll quickly see the difference, so I won't go into too much detail here. Some segments, like the first three in our example, are already correctly paired by the system. In those cases, you can simply highlight the pairs by clicking their segment numbers, and then click Confirm. Once confirmed, you'll see a green line connecting the two segments. This indicates that they've been successfully aligned. But don't worry, you don't have to do this one segment at a time. Now let's take a look at segment 4. Here, we can see a mismatch. Trados has mistakenly connected segment 4 in the source text with segments 4 and 5 in the target text. To fix this, first highlight all three segments involved, the incorrect pairing, and then click Disconnect. Next, highlight the correct matching segments, in this case, source 4 and target 4, and click Connect. Once segment 4 is fixed, you'll notice that segments 5 through 10 are actually correct, but the target segments are one step behind because of the earlier error. Instead of fixing each pair one by one, you can simply highlight all those segments at once, click Disconnect, and then choose Connect 1:1 to pair them up efficiently. Now that you have finished aligning the segments, you may click Quick Import under Import into Translation Memory to update your TM. Finally, remember to save your alignment document when you have connected and confirmed all segments. Now that we're done with the pre-translation preparation, it's time to start our actual translation project. First, return to the Welcome page of Trados. To create a new project, click on the area that says Drag Files for Translation or browse your computer. For this example, let's assume we already have our to-be-translated document ready, that is the Chinese version of the 2024 New Year's Eve announcements. You'll notice that Trados supports a wide range of file types, from simple Word docs to more complex formats like Excel, PowerPoint, HTML, and even InDesign files. Look for the file you would like to translate and click Open. Once you click Open to upload your document, Trados will present you with two options: Create New Project or Translate as Single Document. While it might be tempting to choose the simpler single document option, especially since we're only working with one file this time, it's generally better practice to create a full project. Why? Because projects are easier to manage and expand over time. You never know. There might be additional materials added later, or you may be asked to translate an updated version of the same announcement next year. Once you choose your translation document and select Create New Project, a project creation wizard will appear. You'll notice this setup includes a 9-step preparation process. But don't worry, for most general translation projects, you won't need to go through every single step. Let's focus on the first step, which is straightforward but important. Here, you'll need to enter a project name, specify where you want the project files to be saved on your computer, and most importantly, select the source and target languages. Once again, be especially careful when choosing your languages. Make sure you don't mix up the direction, and pay attention to the language variants. In the Project Wizard, you can skip the General tab for now and go directly to Step 3, Translation Resources. This is the step where you connect your translation memory, which is the core of working with CAT tools like Trados. To do this, click on Translation Memory and Automated Translation under the All Language Pairs section on the left. Then, in the main panel, click the drop-down menu next to Use. The most straightforward option is to choose File-Based Translation Memory. From there, simply locate and select the TM file you created earlier during the alignment step. Once selected, you'll see the TM listed with its name, along with columns showing its language direction and usage settings. This confirms that your TM is now connected and ready to assist in the translation. Since this is a simple project setup, we can also skip the remaining steps in the wizard and go ahead and click Finish to create the project. You may click Close when you see your project was successfully prepared. The system will then bring you to the Projects page. Once the project is created, click into it, select the translatable file, and then click Open for translation to launch the editor. Now, everything is set up, it's time to dive into the actual translation. Let's begin with the first segment, which is the title of the announcement. Since this title doesn't include a date, year, or any other changing detail, it's identical to last year's announcement. When you click into the target text segment, Trados will automatically detect that there's an exact or near-exact match in the translation memory. As a result, the previous translation will appear instantly in the target field. In this case, you'll notice the match rate displayed in the middle panel is 99%, not 100%. This slight difference could be due to factors like formatting discrepancies, extra spaces, or other invisible characters Trados detects. But don't worry, you can always compare the current segment with the previous bilingual pair to quickly confirm whether there's any real difference in content. Now let's move on to the second segment. Just like before, when you click on the target text, TT, segment, Trados will detect a similar match in the translation memory and automatically suggest a translation. However, this time, you'll notice an important issue in the translation. Last year's New Year's Eve announcement was made on December 29th, but this year, as shown in the source text, it was announced on December 27th. Trados helps by retrieving the earlier translation, but it does not automatically update the date or any other changed details in the target text. This is what we call a fuzzy match. In the translation results panel, you can still see the differences between the TM source and the current source, which helps you spot changes quickly. But ultimately, it's the human translator's job to make the necessary edits and ensure accuracy. This clearly shows one of the biggest differences between computer-assisted translation, CAT, tools and machine translation. CAT tools support the translator, but they don't replace human decision-making. Now that we've finished translating the entire document, save your document, and it's time to move on to the next important step, reviewing the translation. To start the review process, go to the top ribbon and click on the Review tab. At the very beginning of this menu, you'll see a button labeled Export for Bilingual Review. Here, you can simply follow the default settings and proceed without making any changes. This feature allows you to export your translation into a bilingual Microsoft Word file, which can be shared with reviewers who may not use Trados. It's especially useful for collaborating with editors or clients who prefer to review translations in Word format. Once you open the exported Word document, imagine you're now taking on the role of the reviewer. As a reviewer, your goal is to spot even the smallest errors or omissions, no matter how subtle. For example, in segment 4, you'll notice something important. Even though all the locations from the source text appear in the target, the phrase "on Hong Kong Island" is missing. You can simply make your corrections by typing directly into the document. Word will automatically be in reviewing mode, so all edits will be tracked for easy reference. Remember to save your progress when you finish reviewing. Now that the reviewer has finished editing the bilingual Word file, let's go back to the editor panel in Trados. This time, click on Import and Update from Bilingual Review. On the starting page of the wizard, you'll see the default setting, Update from Bilingual Review. There's no need to configure anything here, just click Next. On the next screen, select your project file, then click Add, the button with the plus icon. From the drop-down, choose Specific Review Document. Then, simply browse and select the Word file that was reviewed and saved earlier. Finally, click Finish and close the wizard. When you reopen your translation document as requested by Trados, your edits from Word will now be automatically applied to the segments in Trados. No manual copy-pasting is needed. The edited content will appear in underlined blue font within the target text segments. Depending on your system, the colors and formatting may vary slightly, but the edits are always visually distinct, so you can easily spot what is changed. Now, head to the Review tab in the top ribbon and click Next. This will take you to the first edited segment, which Trados will highlight for your review. If you accept the change, Trados will apply it and convert the edit into regular, confirmed text. If you reject the change, the suggestion will simply disappear from the segment. Once you've reviewed and accepted the changes, you might want to mark the segments as reviewed. To do this, go to the Home tab and click Confirm for any segment you've finished checking. When a segment is confirmed, you'll see a green pencil icon and a green check mark appear next to it. It is a clear visual indicator that it's been reviewed and finalized. In industry workflows, the confirm function is often reserved for proofreaders or editors to indicate approval. But if you're working independently or without strict roles, feel free to use it as a personal progress tracker to stay organized and keep track of what's been checked. At the final stage, once all segments are reviewed and confirmed, you may want to export your translation as a clean, finished document. To do this, go to the File menu or use the Home ribbon and select Save Target As. This option lets you save your translated text as a Word document, without any bilingual formatting or track changes. It's the perfect way to generate the final version you'll deliver to your client or use for publishing. And that wraps up our walkthrough. With just a few clicks, you can review, update, and finalize your translations with confidence in Trados. Thank you for watching and happy translating!